Usually when we start these deep dives, we're kind of obsessed with optimization, right?
Absolutely. It's the theme.
It's always the theme. We look at the sources and
Yeah.
we ask,
Mm-hmm.
how do we learn faster? How do we invest smarter? How do we hack our biology to, live to be 150?
Right. The whole more is better algorithm, that's pretty much the default setting for modern life.
It's all about adding
Yeah.
skills, adding energy, adding results to the scoreboard.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. But today, we are doing something very different. We're looking at a stack of sources articles, some psychological papers, a few pretty dense lectures that all deal with the exact opposite.
Subtraction.
We're talking about subtraction. Specifically, we're talking about this phenomenon that, it seems to be happening to a lot of people right now, maybe even more than usual.
It's pervasive. I hear about it constantly.
Here's the scenario, and I think this will resonate. You wake up on a Tuesday, the alarm goes off, sun is shining, your calendar's full of things that, on paper, you should be excited about.
Yeah, the life you built, the one you wanted.
The one you worked for. You have the job you wanted, the gym class you signed up for, dinner plans with friends, but you look at the ceiling and you just feel absolutely nothing.
And we have to be really specific about this nothing, because it's not just being tired.
No.
It's not, oh, I need a coffee and I'll be fine. It is a structural, foundational loss of interest in the very things that used to define who you are.
That's it. That's the core of it.
Yeah.
The sources we're looking at call it the graying out.
Good name for it.
And if you're a high performer, which I know a lot of our listeners are, this feeling is it's terrifying.
It's an identity crisis in slow motion.
Exactly. Your immediate assumption isn't, oh, I'm changing. Your immediate assumption is, I'm broken.
I'm depressed. I'm lazy. I've lost my edge. All of that negative self-talk kicks in immediately.
I'm washing up. My best years are behind me.
Exactly. But we're looking at research today, and it's largely grounded in the psychology of Carl Jung that argues this. This whole thing isn't a malfunction. It's not a bug in your software.
It's a feature.
It's a feature. It is a psychological mechanism with a very specific purpose.
Okay, now that is a very provocative thesis.
It is.
Because it feels like a malfunction. It feels like your engine has just died on the highway. But the idea here from these sources is that this apathy, this total withdrawal of energy, is actually a biological and psychological safeguard.
Yes. A safeguard. It's not the end of your ambition. It's the beginning of a process, Jung, called individuation.
Individuation. Okay, that sounds very academic, almost sterile.
I know it does.
But the way it actually plays out in real life is visceral. It's messy. It's confusing.
It's hellish. For a while, let's be honest.
Right. So let's get into this. We're going to walk through the mechanics of why the lights go out, why our modern hustle culture makes it infinitely worse, and then ultimately how you navigate this without completely blowing up your life.
And just a heads up for you listening, the solution that the sources point to is completely counterintuitive. It's not what you'd think. If you try to fix this with willpower, which is, our standard tool for everything.
A hammer for every nail.
The hammer for every nail. You will likely make the condition permanent. You'll get stuck in it.
Okay, that's a hook if I've ever heard one. So let's start at the crime scene, the graying out. What is actually happening in the brain, or I guess the psyche, when this kicks in? Because it feels so physical. It really feels like the power has been cut.
It does. And to understand the mechanics, we have to look at how Jung defined energy. And this is important. We need to clarify a term that gets misused constantly in pop culture. Libido.
Right. I say libido, you think.
Sex drive.
Sex drive. End of story.
Exactly. And that was the Freudian view. Sigmund Freud saw libido as primarily sexual energy. That was his whole framework. But Jung split from Freud on this, and it was a massive disagreement, a friendship-ending one.
So this wasn't a small thing.
Not at all. For Jung, libido was so much broader. He defined it as psychic energy in general.
Psychic energy.
Think of it as the raw current of life. It's the electricity that powers your interest in your job, your love for your partner, your desire to paint something, your motivation to argue about politics on Twitter.
That last one takes a lot of energy.
It takes a huge amount of energy. It's all the same juice. It's the will to live and the will to engage. It's your get up and go.
So it's the resource. It's the fuel tank for everything.
It's the flow. Actually, Jung often used water metaphors, which I think are really, really helpful here.
Okay.
Imagine your energy is a river. For years, maybe decades, that river has flowed into specific, predictable channels. It flowed into your career paths, building social status, into your identity as a good person or a hard worker.
And you didn't have to force it. The water just went there. Gravity did the work.
Gravity did the work. That's that feeling of flow or high motivation we all chase. When you wake up and you just want to do the thing, it's effortless.
Yeah.
But the sources describe a moment where the psyche, and specifically the unconscious part of your mind that really regulates this flow, decides that those channels, they're dead ends now.
There's not a conscious choice.
Not at all. The unconscious acts like a dam operator. It has a deeper wisdom, and it realizes, hey, this job isn't serving our growth anymore, or this social groom is actually superficial and draining, or this goal we're chasing is actually, well, it's someone else's goal. It's what our parents wanted for us.
But the conscious mind, the part of me that pays the bills, that has an ego, that worries about my resume, it doesn't know that yet. It's still full steam ahead.
No, the conscious mind is clueless. It's still looking at the map saying, we're going to the vice presidency, we're going to buy the summer house. But the unconscious controls the dam.
Yeah.
And because it sees this massive misalignment, it shuts the water off.
That's the graying out.
That is it. It's a sanction. It's like your internal government has imposed sanctions on your external life. The energy is deliberately withdrawn.
And that's why you can look at a spreadsheet you used to love, or party invite, or even your gym bag, and it just looks like a foreign object. It has no emotional charge.
Zero charge. Because the charge has been cut at the source.
You know, this is a crucial distinction because I think most people blame the object. They blame the external thing.
100%.
When this happens, they think, oh, this job got boring, or my friends are annoying now, or I need a new hobby. They externalize the problem.
Precisely. They start trying to change all the external variables. They quit the job, they dump the partner, they buy a new car, they move to a new city. They're frantically trying to dig a new channel for the water to flow into.
But what they usually find is
That the water doesn't flow there either. The new job feels just as empty after a few months. The new city loses its shine.
because the issue isn't the channel.
The issue is that the source, the river itself, has gone underground. The unconscious has pulled the energy back into itself for a purpose.
But why? I mean, I get that the unconscious might think a goal is outdated, but this seems incredibly destructive from a practical standpoint. If I stop caring about my job, I might get fired. If I stop caring about my family, I could lose them. Why would my own survival mechanism, which my psyche is supposed to be, sabotage my survival?
That is the million-dollar question, isn't it? It's because the unconscious works on a very different timeline than your employer. And it defines survival differently than your ego does.
Also,
Your ego defines survival as, maintaining status, paying a mortgage, keeping up appearances, psychological survival. But the unconscious is concerned with the survival of the soul, of your authentic self.
okay.
And Jung had this concept that the first half of life, which is roughly until age 35 or 40, though it's not a hard rule, is all about adaptation.
Okay, let's parse that. What is adaptation?
Adaptation is about establishing yourself in the external world. It's about survival and belonging. You build a strong ego so you can function. You learn the rules of society. You figure out how to get by. And, crucially, you create a persona.
The persona. That's another one of those big Jungian terms.
A huge one. It comes from the Latin word for the mask, worn by actors in ancient Roman theater.
The mask.
The persona is the social mask you wear to fit in, to function. You learn how to be a polite neighbor, a diligent employee, a reliable parent. You suppress the parts of yourself that don't fit those neat little roles. And this is healthy. It's necessary.
Right. You need a persona to survive. You can't just walk around being your raw, unfiltered self all the time. You'd be unemployable and probably have no friends.
Exactly. You need a container. You need to pay your taxes and be polite at the grocery store. You're building the container for your life. That's the work of the first half. But eventually, and this is the absolute crux of the issue, the container becomes a cage. We over-identify with the mask. We start to think we are the job title. We are the good parent. We are the successful achiever. We forget there's a person underneath.
And the goals you set at 20.
The goals you set at 20 were likely based on insecurity or pleasing your parents or just, cultural mimicry. You saw what successful people on TV did and you said, I'll have that. You wanted to be successful because that's what you were told to want.
So the graying out is basically the expiration date on those old motivations finally coming due.
Exactly. The unconscious sees that you have outgrown the persona. You are playing a role that is too small for you now. The actor has become greater than the mask. So the unconscious, in its wisdom, pulls the plug to force you to stop playing the role.
It's a strike. Your inner self is going on strike.
That is a perfect analogy. The unconscious goes on strike. We are not supplying energy to this fake life anymore, and it will not return to work until the contract is renegotiated.
Wow. And this brings us right to the massive conflict with modern society.
The head-on collision.
Because we do not live in a culture that respects internal union strikes. If I go to a doctor or a therapist or a career coach and say, I don't care about anything, I have no motivation, and I just want to stare at a wall, they're going to diagnose me. They're going to try and fix me.
They will call it depression.
Yeah.
And we need to be very, very careful here. Clinical depression is real, it is dangerous, and it often requires medical intervention. The sources are clear to emphasize that there is an overlap in symptoms.
Of course.
But Jung, and the thinkers who followed him, differentiated between a clinical depression that might be purely neurochemical, a meaningless void, and what he sometimes called a creative depression, or a spiritual dryness.
So how on earth do you tell the difference? Or is it just a matter of hindsight? You look back and go, oh, that was transformative.
It can be really hard in the moment, but the difference is often found in the teleology, the purpose. Is there a purpose to it? Clinical depression can feel like a chemical malfunction, a pointless suffering. But this graying out, this Jungian withdrawal, it often feels like a pregnant pause.
I'm a pregnant pause.
Yeah, there's a strange sense of waiting, a sense of something is happening under the surface even though I can't see it. It's an empty feeling, but not a meaningless one.
And context must matter, right? Who this happens to.
Huge. The context is huge. This usually happens after a period of high achievement or intense adherence to social rules. It's what some people call the executive curse. It strikes the people who were the best at playing the game. The straight-A students, the corporate climbers.
The ones who perfected their pursuit.
Ones who perfected it, the ones who got the gold star. And then one day, they look at the star and realize it's just a piece of paper.
So society tells us the cure for this feeling is more. Push through. Get a new planner. Fake it till you make it. Just do it.
And that is the absolute most dangerous advice you can take in this specific situation.
Why? I mean, it's counterintuitive. If I'm feeling listless, isn't activity the answer? Isn't it motion creates emotion?
Not here. Because you are fighting a biological safety mechanism, you're fighting your own wisdom. If your psyche has withdrawn energy to force a restructuring, and you use caffeine, fear, or sheer willpower to force yourself to keep running on the old tracks,
You're just overriding the warning signal.
you are effectively declaring war on your own unconscious. You are telling it, your wisdom is wrong, my ego knows better.
And the unconscious is bigger than you.
Much bigger. It has the home field advantage, and it always wins in the end. If you ignore the apathy, if you try to caffeinate your way through the strike, the unconscious just raises the stakes.
What does that look like?
It moves from boredom to anxiety, free-floating anxiety with no obvious cause. If you ignore that, it might move to panic attacks. And if you still don't listen, it can go to somatic illness. Your back goes out, you get chronic migraines, you develop ulcers.
The body says, oh, you won't sit down. Fine, I'll make you sit down.
Exactly. It will incapacitate you if that's what it takes to stop the false life you're leading. It sees the false life as a greater threat than losing your job.
That is a terrifying thought.
Right.
So the burnout we see everywhere, the epidemic of burnout, that's just people winning the daily battle against their boredom, but losing the long-term war against their own psyche.
I think that's a huge part of it. It's people burning up their finite willpower because they've lost access to their renewable libido. Willpower is a battery, libido is the power grid. You can run on the battery for a while, but eventually you go dark.
Okay, so let's say we accept this. We accept the premise. The lights have gone out for a reason. But that doesn't make it any more pleasant to sit in the dark.
Not at all.
The outline here calls this next section the descent, navigating the cocoon phase.
Yeah.
And honestly, cocoon sounds cozy. It sounds like a spa day, a little retreat.
That sounds lovely.
But the biology of what actually happens in a cocoon it's pretty horrific.
It's violent.
Yeah.
It's absolutely violent. We teach kids about butterflies, and it all seems so sweet and magical. But if you were to cut open a chrysalis at the halfway point, you don't find a cute little sleeping caterpillar with tiny wing buds.
What do you find?
You find goo. Literal genetic soup. The caterpillar releases enzymes that dissolve its own body. It digests itself from the inside out. It has to completely melt down into a primordial slush before it can reassemble into the butterfly.
And that's what this phase feels like psychologically, a complete meltdown.
Yes. That is why it is so painful. When the energy withdraws from the external world, it turns inward. This is what Jung called the inward turn. You aren't just empty, you are suddenly crowded.
Crowded. That seems like a contradiction.
It feels like one, but energy is conserved. It doesn't just vanish. If it's not flowing out to your job, your hobbies, your social life, it's flowing into your memory, your complexes, your deepest fears.
So all the thoughts, regrets, and emotions you were too busy to notice when you were crushing it.
They are all in the room with you now, and they want to have a conversation. There's nowhere left to run.
And this is the famous confrontation with the shadow.
Right, the shadow.
We hear this term in pop psychology all the time, and it's usually simplified to mean the bad stuff, your evil side or whatever. But in this specific context, what are we actually facing?
It's so much more nuanced than that. In Jungian terms, the shadow isn't just evil. It's simply the unlived life. It is everything you had to repress, deny, or push away to become a good citizen in the first half of your life.
Is all the parts of you that didn't fit into the persona.
Perfectly said. The parts that were inconvenient, messy, or socially unacceptable.
Okay, can you give me a concrete example?
Sure. Let's say your persona, your mask, is the peacemaker. You're the guy who always compromises, who makes sure everyone else is happy, who never yells, never asserts his own needs because it might cause a conflict.
Sounds like a nice guy. A good employee, a good friend.
On the surface, sure. But human beings, all of us have aggression. We have a drive for power. We have healthy selfishness. It's part of our nature. So for the peacemaker, where does all of that go?
Into the basement.
Straight into the shadow. Now, during the graying out, when the main psychic structure is dissolving, the lid comes off the basement, and all that repressed energy comes surging up.
So what happens?
The nice guy might suddenly feel these inexplicable waves of rage over nothing. He might have vivid fantasies of flipping his desk over at work or screaming at a waiter for a minor mistake.
And this is terrifying for him because his identity is, I am a nice, calm person.
It's an identity collapse. He thinks he's going crazy. Or, another example, if you were the high achiever who never showed weakness, whose persona was all about competence and strength.
Your shadow might be incredibly needy and vulnerable.
Exactly. You might find yourself crying during commercial breaks for insurance companies, and you think, what is wrong with me? I'm falling apart, I'm becoming a monster, or I'm losing my mind.
But the source material argues this isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. This is a necessary process.
It's vital. It's the whole point. You cannot become whole. You cannot individuate if you are only half a person. You've spent 30 or 40 years developing one side of your personality, the acceptable side. Now you have to meet the other half.
So you have to integrate the shadow.
You have to integrate it. The goal isn't to become the rage monster. It's to acknowledge that the capacity for healthy anger and assertion is there, and to claim that energy, to harness it consciously instead of having it explode unconsciously.
So the random irritability, the weird dreams, the sudden crying jags, that's not the problem. That's the data.
That's the raw material for the new structure. That's the goo. You're swimming in the raw data of your total self.
There's another layer to this descent that the notes mention, which is a fascinating metaphor from alchemy, the Negredo.
Yes, Jung was absolutely fascinated by alchemy. He didn't see it as primitive, failed chemistry. He saw it as a profound symbolic map for psychological transformation.
And the Negredo is the first step.
It's the first and most difficult stage of the great work. It's also known as the blackening.
The blackening. That sounds unpleasant.
It is. It's the decomposition. The alchemical texts say that before you can turn lead into gold, you have to break the lead down. You have to put it in a vessel, seal it, and heat it until it putrefies and turns into a black, chaotic mass.
So the lead is the ego, the persona.
The lead is your old, rigid identity. The Negredo is the experience of that identity dissolving into darkness, confusion, and depression. The alchemists knew that you couldn't skip this step. They wrote over and over, if you don't have the Negredo, you don't get the gold.
So if you're listening to this and you're in the dark right now, if everything feels black and chaotic, you're actually on step one of the recipe.
Correct. You weren't failing the class, you're just starting the actual curriculum. Everyone else is still in the orientation.
Okay, so we're in the goo, we're in the Negredo, we're dissolving. The instinct, the desperate screaming instinct, is to scramble out, to fix it, to find a new job immediately, to start a new hobby, anything to stop the feeling.
Anything for a distraction.
But the sources have some rules of engagement for this phase that are really, really hard to hear for modern people. especially high achievers,
And rule number one is the hardest of all. Do not resist.
which feels impossible. It goes against everything we are taught about grit and
It
perseverance.
feels totally impossible. But Jung's advice was often aligned with the old Taoist concept of wu wei, which is often translated as action through non-action. He had a famous saying, "What you resist persists."
If you fight the apathy, you just give it more energy. You lock it in place.
You do. You have to surrender to the psychological winter. You can't make spring come faster by shouting at the frozen ground.
But what does that look like practically?
Hmm?
I mean, does it mean I should just quit my job and lie in bed for 6 months?
Yeah.
Because most people can't do that. We have responsibilities.
No, and Jung was a pragmatist. He didn't advocate for abandoning your responsibilities entirely unless your life is truly toxic. For most people, it means you stop the internal war. You stop the relentless critical commentary in your head that says, "This is wrong, I should be better, I'm a failure, I need to fix this right now."
You drop the judgment.
You drop the judgment. You do the bare minimum required to keep your life from completely collapsing. You know, pay the bills, feed the kids, show up to work, but you stop trying to force the extra 20%. You stop trying to be a superstar.
You withdraw your emotional investment from the outcome.
Yes. You give yourself permission to be fallow.
Like a field.
Exactly like a field. Any good farmer knows this. You can't plant the same crop in the same field every single year forever. The soil dies, it gets depleted of nutrients. You have to let a field lie fallow for a season.
And from the outside, it looks dead. It looks unproductive. The neighbors think you're a lazy farmer.
They think you've given up. But underneath the surface, in the dark, the real work is happening. The nutrients are replenishing. The bacteria and worms are doing their thing. The soil is healing.
Wow, that's a powerful metaphor. And there's a specific trap mentioned here that I think destroys a lot of people in this phase, especially in the age we live in.
Social media.
Comparison.
Oh, it's lethal. It is pure poison during the individuation process. You're in your fallow field, feeling like mud, and you open LinkedIn or Instagram.
What do you see?
Everyone is crushing it. Everyone is super excited to announce their new promotion. Everyone is on a beautiful vacation. Everyone is a beautiful butterfly. And you are goo.
You feel like you're not just standing still, you're actively losing ground. I'm 38, I should be at my peak, but I'm sliding backwards while everyone else is sprinting ahead.
But individuation is not a collective sport. It is hyper-individual. It has its own sacred timeline. Comparing your psychological winter to someone else's highlight reel summer is a fundamental category error. You have no idea where they are in their own cycle.
And frankly, a lot of those people who are crushing it
Are just possessed by their personas. They aren't real. They are masks running on autopilot, fueled by caffeine and insecurity. They might look successful, but many of them are totally hollow inside, just a few years away from their own crash.
That's a cynical but also a strangely comforting thought.
It's psychological realism.
Mhm.
And, you know, the source material quotes Viktor Frankl here, the incredible psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust and wrote Man's Search for Meaning.
Right.
He talked about the existential vacuum, the crisis of meaninglessness in modern life.
The vacuum.
He argued that you have to hit that vacuum, that emptiness, before you can find true, authentic meaning. If you just fill the vacuum with noise, endless scrolling, drinking, busy work, obsessive exercise, you never get the signal. You're just numbing the symptom.
So, okay, passive suffering is numbing yourself, avoiding the void.
Hmm.
But the notes here mention active participation. What does that mean? Does it just mean staring at the wall more intently? Laughing. In a way, yes. It's attentive awareness. It means you become a curious, non-judgmental watcher of your own decline. It sounds grim, but it's actually a fascinating process. You start treating yourself like a science experiment.
How so? What am I looking for?
You pay attention. For instance, you write down your dreams. Jung was huge on dreams, especially during these phases, because the unconscious is trying to communicate. It's screaming at you through symbols when logic has failed.
Even if the dreams make no sense. I'm dreaming about a tidal wave, or losing my teeth, or being back in high school unprepared for a test.
Especially if they make no sense to your rational mind. That's the point. That's the symbolic language of the transformation. Just write them down. Don't try to analyze them to death. Just record the images.
And what about in waking life? What am I supposed to be watching for?
You notice which moments make you feel slightly less dead. Tiny sparks. Maybe you're totally numb and bored at work, but then you see a weird-looking bird in the park on your lunch break, and for 3 seconds you feel a tiny spark of curiosity.
A flicker. A flicker. Or you're scrolling aimlessly, but you come across an article about ancient Rome, and you feel a little pull, a faint sense of interest.
You're looking for the pulse, the faint heartbeat of your new self.
You're looking for the pulse. The new libido won't come back with a roar. It will whisper. You have to be quiet enough to hear it. This is also why, as the source notes, symbols become so important. Art, mythology, music.
Yeah, why is it that people in a midlife crisis suddenly want to, like, take up painting or write bad poetry?
Because logic has failed them. Logic is what got them into this cul-de-sac of a life. Logic can't get them out. Symbols and art are the bridge. They speak the language of the unconscious.
So they allow you to process the transformation without needing to have a neat intellectual understanding of it yet.
Precisely. So if you feel a strange urge to draw or build a table out of wood or listen to a piece of classical music over and over or just look at old cathedrals online, follow that. That is the unconscious trying to build a bridge back to consciousness.
Okay, so we're in the cocoon. We're trying not to resist. We're writing down our weird dreams about tidal waves. We're not comparing ourselves to the LinkedIn influencers.
Okay.
But where's this heading? The listener needs to know that the lights do come back on eventually.
They do. They absolutely do. But the source is very, very clear on this point. They do not come back on the way they were before. It's not a reset. It's not about getting back to your old self.
Exact upgrade.
It's a metamorphosis. When the psychic energy returns, it doesn't flow back into the old, dried-up channels. You don't suddenly wake up one day and get passionate about hitting that vice presidency sales target again.
Laughs. Sorry to any vice presidents who might be listening.
The energy finds new channels, deeper channels, and the quality of the energy is completely different. The sources describe it as a fundamental shift from a life driven by ambition to a life guided by meaning.
Okay, break that down for me. That sounds a little bit like a bumper sticker. What is the actual felt difference?
It's huge. Ambition, in this context, is usually external. It's about ego. I want to be seen as X. I want to own Y. I want to prove my dad wrong.
It's about external validation.
Totally. It's loud. It's restless. It's often based on a feeling of deficit. I am not enough as I am, so I need to achieve these things to become enough.
Right. And meaning.
Meaning is internal. It's quiet. It's stable. It's the difference between doing something to get applause from the crowd and doing something because it feels fundamentally correct in your own bones. It aligns with your true nature, not with your persona.
The source material uses this great phrase, psychological realism.
Yes. This is the hallmark of the mature, individuated state. In the first half of life, we often live in a fantasy. The fantasy that if we just achieve enough, get the right partner, make enough money, we'll be happy forever. We believe in the fairy tale ending.
And in the second half of life.
In the second half, after the graying out, we attain psychological realism. We accept that life is difficult. We accept that suffering is an unavoidable part of the deal for everyone. We stop trying to escape it.
That doesn't sound very fun. It sounds kind of grim.
But it's incredibly resilient. Because you stop chasing happiness and you start looking for meaning. You find a burden that is worth carrying. That's the great Nietzsche idea, right? He who has a why to live can bear almost anyhow.
And the graying out is the process that strips away all the fake, borrowed whys. It burns off the societal values so you can find your own real why.
Exactly. So when you come out of the cocoon, you might technically have the same job, the same family, the same house, but your relationship to all of them is completely different.
You're not using them to prop up your fragile ego anymore.
No, you're engaging with them because you choose to, from a place of wholeness. Or you might change everything. That happens too. People quit their corporate careers, they move to farms, they start nonprofits. But it's not an escape anymore, it's a move towards something authentic.
And the main tool you gain from this process is discernment. That's a key word in the notes here.
It's maybe the most important tool. You simply know, on a gut level, what drains you and what feeds you, and you no longer have the tolerance for the fake.
This is why people in this phase often stop being able to make small talk or go to parties they don't want to go to.
They physically can't do it. It feels like they are bleeding energy. It's not an intellectual decision. It's a visceral reaction, so they stop.
And their friends might reframe this as, oh, you're becoming antisocial, or you're getting cold and detached.
But Jung would say, no. You are not becoming detached. You are refining your connection.
It's quality control for your life.
It is. You are trading a wide breadth of superficial connections for a few deep, nourishing ones. And there's a real stability to it. The manic highs and depressive lows of the ego-driven life start to smooth out. You become solid, centered.
I really want to circle back to one of the final insights in the stack here, because it completely reframes this whole ordeal.
Yeah.
We usually tell the story of the graying out as a tragedy. I lost my spark, I lost my mojo, I'm not who I used to be.
Right. We mourn it like a death. We think we've lost something precious.
But the source suggests we should actually view it as a rescue mission.
That is the key takeaway for me, 100%. Just imagine for a second if you didn't lose interest. Imagine if you just kept running on that treadmill, chasing goals that weren't really yours, wearing a mask that was slowly suffocating you for another 40 years.
You'd get to the end of your life and have that horrifying realization that you never actually lived it. You lived a script. You lived a marketing brochure for a human being.
Exactly. The apathy, the graying out, is your psyche performing an intervention. It's hijacking the plane to stop you from crashing it into the wrong mountain.
Yeah.
It feels like a crash landing. Yes, it's bumpy and terrifying, but it's actually a life-saving course correction.
It's your soul refusing to settle for a life that is too small for you.
Beautifully put. That's exactly it. The emptiness isn't an absence. It's a clearing. It's creating space. You can't put beautiful new furniture in a room that's hoarded to the ceiling with old junk. The graying out is the moving crew coming in and clearing the house. For a while, it looks empty and sterile, but it's just ready.
So if you're listening to this right now and you're in the gray, if you are that person staring at the ceiling, feeling that heavy, profound nothingness,
Don't panic. You are not broken. You are not failing. You are in the cocoon. You are in the Negredo. You are right on schedule.
and the advice is, wait, watch, be curious, and trust that the energy is conserved. It hasn't vanished forever. It's just gone underground to build the new you, the real you.
And that really is the privilege of a lifetime, to be given the chance to become who you actually are.
That is heavy stuff, but surprisingly hopeful. Thanks for walking us through the fog.
It was a real pleasure.
That's it for this deep dive. We'll see you on the other side.